Glad you're here tonight. I want you to turn to Matthew chapter 13. We're going to continue. I guess we've dealt with this a couple of times, and we want to continue in this thought tonight, which is found in Matthew chapter 13, verse 10, down through verse 16. It includes a prophecy, of course, that is given to us out of Isaiah, which kind of fulfills, not kind of, it fulfills what was going on in that hour as Jesus was in great controversy with the Pharisees in chapter 12. And now he's moved into this scene where he is speaking in parables, as you know. And when the disciples asked him about what was going on in the parable thing, as in verse 10, he gave them this answer. And the disciples came and said to him, why do you speak to them in parables? He answered and said to them, because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. For whoever has, to him more will be given, he will have abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand. And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, hearing you will hear and shall not understand. Seeing you will see and not perceive. For the heart of this people is grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, your ears, for they hear. Wonder what group we're in, Lord. I've heard. I've seen the divine movement of God, but do I see and do I hear? I don't want to force you, Jesus, to speak to me in parables, that you might protect me from the destructive power of the truth rejected. I want you to be able to come to me, and in the deep inner part of my heart and life, as you embrace me, reveal exactly who you are and make corrections and change me in any way you want to, because I am embracing and open to the truth. Speak to us tonight, we pray thee. In your name we ask it, amen. This is really, for me, this is really heavy, what we're trying to deal with. And I've been trying to comprehend and find out what the depth of this really is all about as you move into this passage. And we've made several attempts to describe this in what we have called the danger of the truth. And of course, truth is dangerous. We have hopefully discovered that in the last few weeks, that truth is very, very dangerous. The Scripture describes it itself like the Word of God is sharper than a two-edged sword, is as sharp as a two-edged sword, and it cuts and divides. So when truth really comes, it does a work in the life that can be absolutely destructive. It's dangerous, in other words, to be exposed to the truth. We likened it to light and darkness, and the light and darkness concept is that the light is literally destructive to the darkness, that it literally eliminates it. So if a person wants to live in darkness and truth comes, there's going to be a destructive thing take place in the human life. So to be exposed to truth is very, very dangerous. And I want to suggest to you tonight that there's a few things that you need to keep in mind as we try to walk into this and I'm just kind of shaking my head over this whole thing. But there's several things that you need to keep in mind. One thing is that truth is not data and information. We, of course, have gone over this and over this, so that no doubt you already understand that. That truth is not 2 + 2 = 4. That's fact, but it's not truth. Truth is on an altogether different plane. Truth has to do with knowledge that goes beyond academic understanding. That you can take all of the psychology and all the psychology courses and not understand truth about the human personality at all. So truth is way beyond just information and gleaning the facts and the academic. In fact, the second thing that ties into that is the idea that Jesus is the truth. And I don't really know how to describe that to you. In fact, I've been struggling with that all day. How are you going to express that? Jesus is truth. That's what he said, so it must be true. That Jesus is the truth. I am the truth. Which is, again, beyond data and information. And it's not knowing facts about Jesus, but it's knowing Him. And in knowing Him, somehow there is a revelation that begins to take place in your life that brings understanding to the function and the essence and design of who you are. That your destiny is all wrapped up in the intimacy of knowing Him, because truth for your life only comes in that embrace. And after I've got done saying that, I'm not sure what I said. Because it's so much easier just to have ideas that you write down and memorize this and then you got it. Oh, yeah, I know that. But, see, you can know that Jesus is the truth and not know truth. See, you can know all of this stuff. And, folks, we've got them on every hand throughout the evangelical world. People that know all this biblical, theological stuff, but don't know truth. Truth is, what is truth? Pilate asked that question. And of course, Jesus, again, is the essence of what we need. So I guess what I'm after in my life is the revelation of His person in such a way that I see things as He sees them, which will give me the possibility of knowing exactly the design of the way things are to be, which somehow truth is contained within that. And the essence that God has taken everything He wants you to know, and He's jammed it into the person of Jesus. And in your intimacy with the person of Jesus, who is the truth of God for you, you begin to understand the reality of life. So keep in mind, when we're talking about truth, we're not just talking about ideas or facts or theology or doctrine. We're talking about the literal movement of the reality of Jesus that brings revelation to your life. And that is the sharper than a two-edged sword that cuts your life. Now, the third thing that you need to really zero in on and get a hold of as we begin to walk through this is not only that truth is not data and information, but secondly, truth is Jesus. But thirdly, the setting that we're involved in. You understand that in all through chapter 12, there's been this controversy. And Jesus has been battling with the Pharisees. And the one characteristic of the Pharisees is they are locked down when it comes to truth. They are not embracing Jesus. He is directly stating truth, revealing Himself, His heart, to them, and they are shutting Him down on every hand. And that didn't happen once, it happened twice, happened 3 times, happened 4 times. We don't know. Probably was other times within this one day. There was a whole flow of this that drove them to plot murder in the conference room and to go through even to the place of criticizing Him, bad-mouthing Him, because they couldn't do anything in terms of killing Him. So they ended up bad-mouthing Him. And a destructiveness in their own life came about because truth had been revealed to them. And then as you flow out of that and you move into chapter 13, Jesus is sitting by the sea, and the crowd gathers in again, and all the multitudes have come the same day, same crowd, same operation. And as they gathered in, Jesus changed his whole technique of preaching. And he began to preach to them in parables. And now his disciples have come and said, "Why are you doing this?" And Jesus is giving them this answer. And we are trying to discover this answer in the context of what has just happened with the Pharisees and the deliverance of truth that Jesus has been bringing to them. Now there seems to be out of this a dilemma. And again, I have no idea what to do with this. In fact, I probably don't know enough about this to even talk about it. Jesus is not mad at the Pharisees. Now you would think that. In our framework and the way we are, man, I tell you something and you just turn around and blow it off and do something else and it makes me mad. But Jesus is not like that. See, that's a self-centered approach. So what we tend to do time after time after time is we tend to take our characteristic, our anger, the way we react, and we impose it upon Jesus, thinking that that's the way he is. So we read this passage and we think, oh, Jesus has given the Pharisees truth after truth after truth after truth in all of chapter 12. He finally is wiping his hands and said, "Hey, that's it. I'm not giving you any more truth. I'm going to hide the truth from you, and I'm going to speak in parables so that the truth will not be known to you." And that this is some kind of judgment upon them in order to get back at them or to keep them from. In other words, he is eliminating them from the truth and the kingdom of God so that they can no longer get in. He's wiped his hands of them, struck their name off the list. But I'm proposing to you folks, that's not the case. I promise you that's not the case. Jesus is not like that in the first place. But I promise you in the context and in the passage, that's not what's going on. Jesus has a broken heart. Jesus is looking at the Pharisees. He's not mad at them. He is broken inside, saying, I want you to know the truth. He's seeing what's going on in their lives. He sees how they have rejected. He sees what's taking place. And he sees what truth is doing to them. And he is absolutely broken inside and saying, oh, I can't allow this to go on. Something has got to happen. Now, the reason that's so important is because that relates to you and me. So if I reject the truth, then Jesus is mad at me and I walk out of this building and get run over with a train. See, that's what we thought. But that isn't true. Number one, Jesus doesn't run people over with trains. So that isn't true, see. He's not mad at you. He's not mad at you. Well, I rejected truth. He's still not mad at you. He's brokenhearted. Got it. He's split down the middle. Okay. He's so upset that he'll do anything to get you in, even to die on a cross. Wonderful. That's all true. But he's not mad, and he's not eliminating you. He's going to try to pull you in. He's going to try to give you truth again. He's never going to give up on giving you truth. So you got this dilemma in the passage. You got two groups of people going on here. Over here on this side, you've got the people who are seeking truth and open. So Jesus can give truth to them. He puts his disciples in that category. He says, verse 11, because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. Then over here, there's a group of people who, like the Pharisees in our passage, are that group. They are rejecting truth. And truth is doing something in them that is destructive. And in the rejection of truth that is within them, Jesus is saying, hey, it's not been given to them to know the mysteries of the kingdom. This group, it's been given to them. This group, it's not been given to them. Not because he's mad. You got to get this. Not because he's mad at them. Not because he's eliminating this group. But he sees what truth is doing in the group that is rejecting. And it's destroying them, and he doesn't want that. This group, truth is building them. This group, truth is destroying them. And Jesus looks at the group that the truth is destroying and says, oh, I can't stand that. That's the key to the passage. I can't stand that. I don't want truth to destroy them. I want truth to build them. I want them to respond. So I got this dilemma. Now, in any crowd, as would have been in this crowd that gathered by the seashore, you would have these two groups of people. A group that's saying, oh, we want truth, and when it comes, we're going to respond to it. And it'll do surgery on us that'll bring healing and make us all we should be. But then there's going to be this other group that's going to wiggle, that's going to not stay still, that's going to reject, that's going to go against during the surgery. And it's going to cut them to pieces and destroy them. And truth is going to ruin them and destroy their lives. And Jesus is saying, oh, I don't want that. They'd be better off if they never heard truth because of what truth is doing in them. Now, you understand it isn't truth, technically, that's doing this, although it is, because that's a contradiction. Truth is doing this, but truth will build or truth will destroy, determined by the response of the individual. The sun is shining. Oh, it's melting butter. It's hardening clay. Well, does truth melt or does it harden? Well, it's determined by the substance it's shining on. Come on, this is not that hard. Right? So truth builds you. That's true. Truth is good. That's right. No, truth is bad, man. You don't want it in your life. Why? It'll destroy you. It depends on how you respond to it. So technically, it isn't the responsibility of truth whether it builds you or destroys you. Technically, it's your responsibility in the response to it. So in every crowd, you've got truth. In every crowd where truth is being delivered, you've got a group that truth is building, and you've got a group that truth is destroying. Now, how are you going to select that? Because it would be better in this crowd here tonight, for those that truth is building and those that truth is destroying, it would be better to just dismiss the truth, those who are rejecting truth and that truth is destroying. And just say, you guys, well, listen, you go over there and we'll play cartoons for you. And over here, we'll give you truth. But how are you going to be selective in a crowd? How do you know who's responding and who isn't? Well, you can't make that kind of choice. So Jesus says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to divide the crowd and say, all those who are rejecting truth and truth is going to destroy you, I'm going to put you over there and I'm going to let you watch cartoons. Over here, I'm going to take this group and give them solid truth. He doesn't do that. He's going to speak to the whole crowd in a unit, and he says, the way I'm going to do this is, I'm going to talk to them in parables, which is his way of protecting the ones who are denying truth and building the ones who are embracing truth. Because he cares. I don't know if you got that at all. Let me walk you through some ideas. So Jesus answered to the dilemma of a crowd filled with those that truth is destroying, truth is building, and truth is destroying in the same crowd. His answer to that is, I'm going to talk to them in parables. And here's how he explains it in verse 11. Because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. But to them, it's not been given. And then he tells a proverb, which is the first idea. Proverb. Listen to this proverb. For whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. It's a proverb. And if you say, well, how do you know it's a proverb? Well, because that's what the Bible scholars say, so it must be. But it is a proverb. One reason why you know it's a proverb is because it's quoted again. This thing is quoted in Matthew, for instance, chapter 25, verse 29. Verse 29. It's at the end of the parable. He gives 3 parables in chapter 25, some parables in chapter 24, but parables in chapter 25. They are the parables of the judgment. And at the end of the parable of the talents, he gave one man 1 talent, another servant 2 talents, and another one 5 talents. And he went off, came back. When he came back, he required. The one buried his, the 2 doubled, the one with 5 doubled. And then he said this exact statement about the one who now got the talent that the one man had, that the guy who gave the one man 1 talent, he buried it, he dug that up, gave it to the man who had 10. And you look at it and say, why would you give it to him? He's already got 10. Why didn't you give it to the guy who had 4? And he says, whoever has, this is the same proverb, whoever has, to him will be given, and he will have abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. He ended that parable. Evidently, this is a proverb that was consistent in their day, and Jesus used it again and again and again in explanation of truth. Now, if this is a proverb, which is a concise statement of common sense truth, if this is a proverb, move to the second idea, or to the expansion of that idea, the provision. The provision is, in verse 12, everyone, in the proverb, everyone has truth. And if you react and say, well, no, whoever has, to him will be given, and he will have abundance, but whoever does not have, so the guy doesn't have. But note, he goes on and says, even what he has. So it isn't that he doesn't have truth. And it was interesting, this was brought up Wednesday night in our discussion, that everybody has truth. Nobody can say, I didn't know. And I dare not spend any time on this because this is the idea of prevenient grace, which I love to talk about. Because prevenient grace is the wonder of God saying, hey, out of the sovereignty of my own will and the love of my own being for you, I'm going to be sure that you have enough truth to bring you into everything that I've dreamed for you to be. And that you literally lack nothing. And the only way you can possibly miss this is to go over there and watch cartoons. You're going to have to reject truth. Because He is going to give you truth. You have truth, and you have all the truth you need. So don't read into this passage that they don't have any truth. They got all the truth they need. It's all given to them. And they have everything they need to be all they ought to be. Now, a third idea that couples in with this is the idea of progression. In other words, he's giving a proverb that tells you everybody has a provision of truth, and that this truth is in a distinct progression. Everybody has truth, and that truth is either building or diminishing. Nobody is stagnant. Nobody levels out. Nobody is, I just am what I am. No, you are not going to. I will meet you in another year, and you will either be more involved in truth, knowing more truth, or you will know less truth than you know now. Truth is either going to expand or it's going to diminish. That's serious. Can you imagine hanging around the church and having truth diminish in your life? You used to be. Now you are. What happened to you? What took place? Truth hasn't gone away. That is serious. And that's why Jesus is so concerned in this passage. Here's a whole group of Pharisees, and what's happening in their lives. God has given them this phenomenal truth, the whole Old Testament, and it's diminished. It's been belittled. It's shrunk in their life. And by the time you get into chapter 12, they can't see. They have so rejected. They have gotten to the point. The progression is even in chapter 12, the progression of the destruction that is coming to their life. And that's what Jesus is talking about. And he's also bringing it up again in this. Look at the progression in verse 12. Whoever has, to him more will be given. That's a progression, people. And he will have abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. That's a diminishing. See, there's no sitting still on this. And what's going to determine whether truth is going to expand in my life or whether it's going to diminish in my life? Well, obviously, it's all wrapped up in your response to it. Whether you're going to let truth do its work, and it isn't its work, it's His work in your life. So Jesus looks at this crowd. He sees His disciples, and truth is flourishing in them. He sees the Pharisees, and truth is diminishing and destroying in their lives, being destroyed in their lives. So He says, I'm going to answer the problem. I'm going to protect them. So you've got this proverb that tells us there's a provision that's been given to every person, that there is a progression taking place, and due to this progression, Jesus is driven to protection. He's going to take the truth and He's going to protect it in a shell of the parable. Now, how does that protect truth? He's taking the truth and He's planting it in a story. The interesting thing about the stories is you can remember the story. It's simple, and it can just be a story. Or you can go as, this is just hilarious, you can go as deep as you want to go in the unveiling of the truth in the parable. In going overseas and preaching, and of course they talk to you about, you got to know the cultural environment, and you got to know, you don't want to go to a tribe in Africa and discuss bus ministry. Because they don't have buses. Okay. So they give you all that you're supposed to do. So you got to preach a certain way and preach on their level and da-da-da. But here's the interesting thing. Every culture, every place I've ever been in the whole world, everybody understood the prodigal son story. Everybody knew it. Everybody knows it. It's brought up on TV programs, in secular settings. It's truth protected by a shell. Well, how much do you know about a prodigal son? Well, the world doesn't know much about it, but they carry that story around with them. And that story is designed with a truth of the presence of God in the heart of the story that's going to keep gnawing at them. And at the right time, when they will be receptive, that truth is going to slap them upside the head. Strike them deep in their hearts. And it's been hidden all the time in that story that they've been joking about. And you'll hear somebody on the street say, I guess I'm just a prodigal. But he doesn't have any concept of the depth of the truth that's found in the story of the prodigal son. And Jesus took this phenomenal, overwhelming truth and hid it in that story. And you carry that story around with you, and that story, if you gnaw at, will literally begin to reveal truth after truth after truth. The wonder of truth that's found in the story. So what's the point of all this? Oh, I've heard guys come up in older age and say, oh, I wish God would have revealed this to me back when I was younger. He did. You just weren't responsive. See, the issue is not in God withholding truth and not revealing it to you. The issue is, come on, will you respond? He's dumping all of His truth on you, and whether it happens in your life is determined by you and your response. This is not a God who's holding out on you. This is not a God who's rejecting you. This is not a God who's wiping His hands saying, well, you didn't accept that, I'm not giving you. This is a God who's desperate to communicate truth, but sees what truth is doing in the life that's not responding. And says, I'm going to protect you. And He's waiting on you. He's waiting on you. Waiting on you. Thank you for your love, Jesus. I'm overwhelmed indeed. You've not been holding out on me. You've not been keeping it from me. You've not been hiding it in revengeful ways. You've not been blockading. You've not played favorites. You have opened your truth wide open to me. And the handicap, the holdout is I've been destroyed by that truth because I rejected. I wouldn't sit still in the surgery. I wouldn't respond to what you were doing to me. I want to respond, Jesus. I want to respond to your truth. And you're so gracious because you're willing to protect me from your own truth. So you give it to me, but you put it in a protective shell so that it won't destroy me. And you're just waiting. You're just waiting for me to respond, to say yes, to jump in the middle of this and allow truth to do its thing in my life. What would happen tonight, God, if all the arguments were gone and all the excuses were put aside and every hindrance and every rationalization, and it was all gone, and I just embraced you and you alone and turned you loose in my life to be and do exactly what you wanted to be and do. Truth. I don't want to be a person that you have to protect me from the truth, lest it destroy me. Please, God, remove me from the cartoon group who can't take the truth. Heads are bowed. You ready for the truth? You wonder how long He's been waiting, patiently, having put truth in the protective shell of His love. Waiting for you to say yes. Waiting for you to go all out. Waiting for you to respond. He's not withholding from you. But truth is dangerous, folks. And He's put it in a protective shell to keep it from destroying you, so that the moment you respond and truth can build you, it will be released to make you what He's dreamed you could be. Could this be your time? Moments of seeking. Be obedient.